Hi, Bruce. How are you today?
Hey, John, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. It's great to have you on the show and on the program, whatever we call this. It's wonderful. Hey, today's discussion is going to be on recruitment during the pandemic, and we're going to get a beat on the current environment in this area and ask Bruce for his best advice for employers and those who are out actively looking for a new role. But first off, Bruce, I wanted to get a little more about your credentials. I know that you started in marketing and moved into recruitment. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey?
Sure. You know, if I mean, I think that like many people, people have different careers in their life. I started off. I'm a marketer by background.
Right.
My first interest and passion was marketing. And as the bio summarized, I started at P&G, and then I was agency side for many years. I was at Cassette, I was at Mosaic Group, and I
Right.
was an early partner in a web development firm before recruiting called me. And and I think underlying all of those was a passion a passion for marketing, but also a passion to make a difference. And I think first and foremost, I'm probably an entrepreneur, so I've always brought
Right.
an entrepreneurial mindset to it. But I'm a marketer through and through.
That's great. Yeah. And we all do that. I think in life, there's all sorts of different roles for us to take on. And I'm sure that your experience of being a marketer really helped in these searches when you're looking for marketing talent. You can feel like you certainly understand the roles. Um, Also, I just wanted to touch briefly on the CMA. So I know that you're Mr. CMA as far as I'm concerned. You've been involved in so many different ways through the years. Um, can you tell me why that's important to you?
Well, I've long been a passionate supporter and fan of the CMA. I guess it's pretty simple for me. I'm a passionate Canadian. I'm a marketer by background, and there's a self-serving element to it as well. About 50% of our business is placing and helping companies hire marketing CMOs, marketing leaders, and the teams underneath them.
Right.
And so it's very important to me that we participate in and give back to the community. And the CMA is the leading association doing that. So that's the root of my enthusiasm for it.
Thank you. That's great. And we certainly appreciate, uh, we count on all of our volunteers to make the whole thing work. So thanks for that. Let's talk about a little bit about what's happening out there right now. I did read an article that was a little bit troubling, saying that 50% of employees in Toronto right now are considering a change. And I don't know if that's a lot to do with the work from home environment. Um, do you have a sense that people are reassessing their roles currently?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. First of all, I think it's important to have context. Our experience is that about a third of people all the time are actively considering whether they're in the right role and whether they
Right.
might be looking for a change. So a jump to 50%, it feels like a large number, but it may not be on a relative basis. That said, we are all working. Most of us are all working from our homes or working remotely from the offices that we were once at. And despite being busier, and I think everybody can attest to the fact that, between the video calls and everything, it actually feels busier than when
Hmm.
you were in an office. Despite that, you still have a lot more free time to kind of reflect on where you're at, whether you've advanced as far as you want to in your career. And also, I think that even for the individuals who are passionate fans, raving fans of their companies, um, there's a weird disassociation. Everybody's removed from the cultural fabric of their companies, even though companies are doing their best to pull everyone together and having virtual events and things like that, there's still this disassociation. And I think with that, it increases people's willingness to consider
Right.
whether they're ready for a change. So it's not a huge surprise, and it's not a horrible thing. And I think that it's allowing people the time to reflect.
Yeah, I think that's good. And reflection is always good. Some of the emotional attachment that we're losing from working from home is probably not the best thing. What is your sense from employers about how they're feeling about the overall work from home environment these days?
Yeah, well, the first thing I think is immense surprise. Almost every business leader and head of marketing that I know was resistant to sort of a flexible work from home situation. A lot of times over the years, as people were changing jobs, they were looking for more and more flexibility, and some companies are I think all companies have become increasingly flexible, so they might have a day of work from home a week or things like that. But nobody could imagine somebody, their entire team working from home full time and being productive. And I think what we found is it's actually the opposite. People have been very productive, almost more so. It's required changes in how people operate, but it's been a wholesale surprise that
Right.
that this actually works.
Yeah, it's something we take for granted, the fact that so much has changed in our environment. I was thinking about that when I was going out for a walk the other day, is that it's just amazing that we're living in the times and being productive in the times that we're actually in. Okay, let's talking a little bit about hiring now. So can you reflect on hiring across the board? Is it kind of down completely across all professions? And then can you specifically comment on marketing as a part of that?
Yeah, it's interesting because IQ Partners has practices, despite the fact that 50% or so of our business comes from the marketing segment or sector. We also have practices in accounting, in technology, in operations and logistics, and in sales. And so we have this context of seeing, which of our segments are up and which are down, and actually, I wish I could tell you some were up. None are up.
Right.
But what we're finding, it's a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is that accounting roles, sales roles, technology roles have been relatively stable. Our clients have been consistently hiring across the board in each of those areas, and our business has been consistent year over year. Unfortunately, some of the other segments, and marketing specifically, is down quite a bit. Our marketing recruitment activity is down probably 40%.
Wow.
And that's, I think, a reflection of marketing is often still a cost center, or there is there's continuing evaluation of the marketing metrics and ROI of marketing. But it's I think some companies are realizing that they can lean down their marketing teams a little bit, and that's unfortunate because it means that there's fewer job opportunities out there, and there are fewer just fewer opportunities, period.
Yeah. Well, and I also think the other negative on that is we actually believe wholeheartedly that marketing is transformative and will lead to better business results. And I guess there are some that are hurting for sure, and there's some industries that are doing well. So we certainly hope as we go into the new year that and the planning environments in these companies that they will start believing in the power of marketing, and hopefully we'll see a new normal in terms of recruitment. So I wanted to get a little bit into the mind of the marketing professional as they are considering new roles. Anything surprising about their interest in actually leaving or going to a new role? What's going through their heads?
The thing that's going through most people's heads, whether they define it as this or not, is fear of the unknown. And that's the thing that is challenging these days. So while we've got this conflicting sort of perspective of more people are reflecting on their careers and think that they would like to make a change, and yet when it comes down to it, there is great fear in making that change. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't, and you can't. People are less able to to check mark on the soft elements of a job.
Right.
When you go into a company, you get a sense of what it's like. You know, when you're interviewing, you're in the offices, you may meet a couple of team members, and there's certain intangible elements of that that just give you comfort in making that move to the new company. No matter how many video calls you can have with somebody, it's hard to replace that intangible part. So when it comes down to it, we've never had more opportunities get to the final offer stage and get turned down, sometimes without even a counter offer. And it's an individual who has said all the way along that they're ready for a change, but when they get down to it,
Right.
there's fear of that unknown. And so that's challenging, and it's hard to get over.
Interesting. The other thing I was thinking about in advance of this discussion is geography. So my guess, and I could be wrong, is that it's probably a good thing for Canadian marketers to have no longer any constraints on geography. They can take a job literally anywhere around the world. Is it good news for marketing professionals in Canada?
I think it's both. I think it's good news and bad news. And the good news, I mean, the good news is Canadian marketers rank among the best in the world. And so the world is open to them. And we've got a number of people in Canada working as heads of marketing or on marketing teams in US companies, in other geographies, other than where they reside in Canada. Sometimes international companies as well, because they can now, and there were people before who would migrate to those countries and work in those countries and be successful. But now we've got some people who are being hired. You know, we saw a VP of marketing hired last week to a European company and doing all of his work and all of his team management remotely from Toronto, Canada. So I think that's a huge opportunity for Canadian marketers. The flip side, the sword cuts both ways, is that you're now competing with everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And so when you've got a marketer in Canada, let's say that we get a search for a marketer based out of Vancouver, and for a Vancouver company, we are looking at a certain pool of marketers within that marketplace. Now we can cast a sort of an unlimited net. And providing the compensation is right, this person could be residing in Nova Scotia. They could be residing in Mexico. And so you have to make sure that if you're a good Canadian marketer, you now have to be just a good marketer. You have to be good and competitive on a global basis.
Fascinating. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Let's go to the advice part. Let's start with employers. So what are some of the key things employers should bear in mind as they're looking to fill critical roles on their team?
Well, I think it ties into what I was just talking about. It's even the best candidates and moving into a company that has a spectacular reputation still have an underlying anxiety. I called it fear earlier. Maybe fear is too strong a word, but an anxiety. And I think what's important for offers is to remember that emotion buys and logic justifies. So no matter how logical the offer can be, how much it makes sense for this person as the next step in their career to take this offer, you need to invest a little bit more these days in getting them comfortable, getting them emotionally engaged with the company. And so that may be, it may be having more meetings. It may be having, it may actually be, breaking down. So we've seen more in-person meetings happen in the later stages of interviews now, all socially distanced and managed appropriately. But it's, we're all intensely human, and ultimately that face-to-face interaction goes a long way of creating chemistry and relatedness. Right. And so that's important, just from the subtle emotional connectivity, and investing more time in getting that person engaged in your company. The second thing is like buying a house in a competitive market. An offer needs to be with as few conditions as possible. So if you put out an offer and it's conditional on references, it's going to make the person more anxious. Either address those references up front and then come out with an offer.
Right.
got an offer going out and the benefits, are withheld for 3 months
Right.
because of the probationary period, maybe consider dropping that. Anything that you can do to come forward with a clean offer
Right.
is going to vastly increase your likelihood of success.
Excellent. Yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. If I'm an employee right now that is looking to develop my career, I currently have a job.
Yeah.
What about us? What should those people? No, I'm not looking for a job. But what about people who are? Is now still a good time to do that research? Should they hunker down for a while first, or what should they think about?
Well, so despite when on a relative basis, our marketing mandates are down, there are still lots of new hires happening out there as well. Lots of companies continue to hire on their own. Most recruiters only represent about a third of the open roles in the marketplace. So if you think about that, there's still a lot of companies managing their own hires. There are still a lot of marketing assignments going through our firm and every other recruiting firm in the country. I think it is important if it's important to engage when the time is right to engage. It's also important to manage your product so that you are your product, but
right.
to manage your brand in a way that you have the most opportunities ahead of you. It's amazing to me that many Canadian marketers do not invest enough time marketing themselves.
I agree.
And refining what their offering is. And I think it's really valuable if you take that brand you perspective and say, okay, what's my brand? What is it now? What could it be over the and what do I need to get it there? And sometimes sometimes it's just a matter of you already have a spectacular brand and you need to take it to market more. There are many people who are very hidden about their careers, and it's you're less likely to make the career moves that you want if you're not visible in the marketplace. And so we're big fans of people who've got the fundamentals to start publicizing their skill sets, to blog, to post, to volunteer, to be active in the community. That makes a big difference. If you haven't been doing that, now's the time to start doing that. As well, there are a lot of people who are wary about updating their LinkedIn profiles when they start looking for a job, because they're afraid that everybody will think that they're looking for a job because all of a sudden their LinkedIn profile got all refreshed. I think that it's important to, first of all, you can justify it during the pandemic and say, yeah, I had some free time on my hands. I just figured I would, update my LinkedIn. Yeah. So that's very defendable. Yeah. And then secondly, I think it's important to be doing that a little bit all the time. So inputting sort of recent changes, recent advancements, optimizing your profile so that you attract interest from other companies or recruiters.
That's great. I did want to also spend a 1 or 2 minutes on those who are currently out of work. And, for sure, my heart goes out to you. There's a lot of really talented people who, because of the pandemic, have been furloughed or have lost their jobs. And I guess patience is the name of the game right now for them, and the fact that there's not a huge amount of recruiting going on right now. Do you have some advice specifically for them during this period of time?
Absolutely. First of all, back to your comment of there's not a huge amount. There is still a lot of activity in the marketplace. Right. So I think that it's important to remember that it's not like it's stopped altogether. Right. And if you think about it, there was a time. I mean, it stopped altogether in March and April, but it's definitely come back. But there was a time sort of in 9/11 or 2008, 2009. It felt like all hiring basically stopped for 6 to 12 months. There is still lots of activity out there. However, it's more competitive than ever. So, I think the things that I said just a minute ago, even if you're working and you need to invest some time in sort of updating your profile, updating your brand, it's even more important if you are unemployed, because you want to make yourself as visible and as marketable as possible.
Right.
The other thing is to don't. I've seen too many people in these sort of situations kind of say, I'm going to sit out, for the next 6 months and wait for the market to come back. And you can do that, but companies, and it's never been more justifiable probably than right now, but companies look at those holes in the resume. And I think it's valuable if you can somehow stay engaged, even if it's on a volunteer basis. Stay engaged, be active. You can do contract work for companies, even if you're not being paid. It's valuable to, it continues to keep you sharp, keep your skills honed. It keeps you active, and nobody has to know that you weren't paid. It's still work. Or maybe you're paid, you're paid only a per diem or some sort of honorarium. But it's still work. It's still valuable, and I think those people who take an active role in being participatory in their career are the ones who have the quickest transitions and the most success in advancing their career.
Wonderful. I do have one question that's come in, and maybe you can reflect from the advice ways you're working with employers on this type of thing. And it's something I do hear a lot, and it's all about culture and employers. And I think that people are really now in these days trying to find, the best practices related to maintaining a culture, maintaining those emotional ties in a work from home environment. Do you have any general advice for employers as they're looking to engage and keep their employees happy, so they don't want to look around?
Yes, well, I've seen lots of people trying different techniques, and I haven't seen the perfect solution out there. I will tell you what does seem to be working, and that's leveraging the tools that we have. So I think that I've seen some companies maintaining a weekly social event, and they're doing it over Teams or Zoom or Google Meets, and you're getting people who are not dissimilar to sort of regular socializing within their social circles. They're doing virtual cocktail parties or Friday afternoon get-togethers or things like that. Within our company, we combine every once a month we have a Thirsty Thursday meeting that we all come together, and generally about 80% of the company logs on, and you get an opportunity to interact face to face and with some other people. So that's important. It's also important not to just do it once a month. It's important to, it's never been more important to have those touch bases, those one-on-ones. So we have mandatory one-on-ones, weekly one-on-ones with every single person in our company. And they're all video, so it's face-to-face. So you can see how people are doing.
Good.
Sometimes it's about business, but sometimes it's just checking in. Now is an important time. I mean, people don't want to show their anxiety or their concerns about what's going on. And it's about talking to them face to face without an agenda and just having a modicum of human touch. That appears to be the best solution. It's not perfect, but it's better than just leaving people hanging. I think upping the communication is critical.
That's great. I know that we have a regular town halls, and they can be very emotional as people all get together and see each other, and you have this almost yearning for that human connection, and people cry sometimes. Even they say it's very interesting for me to watch as we're all going through as humans. Every one of us is going through this period of time, and reaching out for that level of connectivity and the things that became so used to prior to this pandemic. Well, thanks, Bruce. That's a great conversation. I think your advice is very helpful to us all. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.